HBCUs are guardians of the culture.
The stomping ground for the African American intellectual.
A place where you go to cut your teeth.
They serve as bridges between our storied past and our present progress.
Founded out of necessity, sustained through service and sacrifice.
Historically, Black colleges and universities have always been the heartbeat of this country's fight for justice.
Whether it was sit-ins in Greensboro,
bus boycotts in Tallahassee,
or protests in Orangeburg,
HBCUs are and always have been the soul of the nation.
Historically Black colleges and universities built America's Black middle class, and Joe Biden knows that's the backbone of our country.
He has the boldest presidential plan for HBCUs in our history, investing $70 billion in HBCUs and minority-serving institutions, lowering costs for students, and building world-class facilities worthy of our world-class talent.
Joe Biden is not only investing in us, but investing in a better America.
When HBCUs rise, we all rise. We are HBCU students for Biden.
Welcome to this Biden-Harris campaign event, On the Yard and Sister to Sister with HBCU Queens. Please welcome Tria Stallings.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the On the Yard Sister to Sister. You have tuned into a very important conversation. My name is Tria Stallings, and I am the African American Engagement Director in the state of Virginia. And I am a former Miss Delaware State University and a proud graduate of Howard University as well. Okay, hey Queens, okay. I am so happy to be here with you all. We are going to have a powerful conversation. Just to give you some background, the Sister to Sister Conversation is a program that we have to highlight the importance of the Black woman vote. So we are here with powerful, beautiful Black women in campus Queens, okay? So before I move forward, I have to recognize a powerful, dynamic powerhouse that we have here on this panel, Congresswoman Adams, representing North Carolina's 12th Congressional District. Congresswoman Adams, how are you today? Please.
I'm great, Tia, and thank you so much for the invitation to be here. We are HBCU strong. I do want to bring you all greetings from the Queen City to the lovely queens of our HBCUs. From my alma mater twice, North Carolina A&T State University, from the Johnson C. Golden Bears here in Charlotte, North Carolina, who I have the privilege of representing as well, from Bennett College, where I spent 40 years on that campus. So let me just thank you for the work you do and understand that it's all up to us. Tomorrow will be up to us. You are not only the queens, but you're the leaders of your communities and your campuses. And I'm just so delighted to be here with my Shiro, the only TV program I look at. And I'm glad to see Angela with us tonight. But let me just say that when I think about my colleague in the Congress, the late good troublemaker, John Lewis, who was beaten and bloodied on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, almost lost his life as a young man, who was also a proud graduate of an HBCU, but he continued to work until the end of his life, 80 years, protecting this precious constitutional right that we have to vote. So we can't leave this election to chance. I know you aren't going to do that. It's time to stop agonizing. We got to strategize. We're going to do it. We're going to regain our democracy. And I'm just so delighted that the young people are taking the lead. This is your time. Remember Franklin Roosevelt, who said that the ultimate rulers of our democracy are not a president, senators, not congressmen, and not even congresswomen, nor a government official, but the voters of this country. So thank you so much for all that you're doing. And just remember, we're all good people. When good people don't go to the polls to vote for good people, bad people get elected. They do awfully bad things to good people. We've had too much of that for the past 4 years. So we're going to move it forward. And as I've said, North Carolina, we're going to get together with South Carolina, Virginia, all of these states. And in North Carolina, I'm going to tell you, we're working hard to turn the mother out. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you tonight. Sister Queens, thank you for what you do. continue to work hard, and let's make sure that we make a difference this year.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Adams. We are virtually applauding you. Thank you so much for being here. And it's truly an honor. And we thank you for your words. And we thank you so much for your leadership. So at this time, we will introduce Angela Robinson, who is an actress, singer, and former Miss FAMU. Hi, Angela.
How are you guys doing?
We are well.
Good. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Feel free to just let us know about your reign and what brings you here today.
Well, I'm here to support the Biden-Harris ticket, of course. My reign was at the wonderful, amazing, on the highest of 7 hills, Florida A&M University. I was Miss FAMU there, and I'm doing what we do as HBCU graduates. We get involved and we make change happen. We become the change we want to see. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Angela.
Yeah.
And we also have Miss Adenola Oshiniga. She is the HBCU Students for Biden co-chair and the previous Miss Texas Southern University.
Yes, that's correct. Good evening, you all. I'm actually here in Camden, Arkansas, actually out on the parking lot at my alma mater middle school. I was the former Miss Texas Southern University, and I came straight to Camden, Arkansas, because that's where I'm registered to vote. So it is very, very important that we take this election year as something so serious. Like, I was so proud to wear my button today. Put it right on top of my kimono. So I'm like ecstatic and thankful to be here with fellow queens, my wonderful friend and queen, Miss Howard, the current Miss Howard Taylor Davis, and such an honor, Miss Angela Robinson, to have you here. So I just feel honored and privileged, and definitely feel the initiative to voting is not just pivotal, but very, very a meaningful and happy and joyous occasion during this time, because we actually do have the opportunity to be involved. So excited.
Thank you, Queen. And the next voice you will hear is that of Taylor Davis, who is the Miss Howard University. How you doing, Taylor?
Hello. I'm doing so well. I'm coming to y'all from Allen, Texas, kind of Dallas, Texas. I usually claim Dallas, but you know, everyone calls it fake Dallas. It's super funny, but I'm just happy to be here, happy to contribute to the conversation, and just echoing what my fellow queen said. It's such an honor to be in the presence of just so many notable alum, and just showcasing what our HBCUs can do. And I'm just really excited to, be here with so many strong Black women and demonstrating for everyone what strong Black women do for this country and for our society. So thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited to see what conversations we have today.
Thank you, Queen. And we would be remiss if we did not wish Senator Kamala Harris a happy birthday. We are sending her love, even on this panel discussion. Happy birthday to our future vice president, okay? So with that being said, ladies, I think that you all touched on powerful points, and that will lead us right into our conversation. So I'm going to ask a question to the panelists. Feel free to jump in. But I do want to pitch this first question to Angela Robinson. At what point did you realize how important it was for Black youth to get engaged with politics?
From the time I was very young. My father was very involved in the community, and he modeled that for me. So from a very young age, I knew that involvement was essential. Even before I could vote, I couldn't wait until the time that I could vote. And both my parents went to Florida A&M University, so I didn't have much of a choice. So when I went to FAMU, it's you all know. I mean, I'm not saying anything you don't know, but going to an HBCU, you really don't have an option not to get involved. It is sort of one of the things that we are taught, and that's ingrained in us, that we can make a difference, that we have to make a difference in our community. And so I took sort of what I grew up with. I got to FAMU, and I think the first year there, because I'm an artist, they didn't have a production. And I started a production. We did the freshman class production of The Wiz. And how the freshman class gonna come in here trying to change things? But that's just what we do. And that's how that on that small scale, we made a change. And now, years and years and years later, we're still working at making a change on this large scale. And we can do it. We can do it. And you know, we have done it in the past, and we can do it again. And all of that has been ingrained in us, all of us, because we have an HBCU education.
Thank you so much, Taylor and Adenola.
It's funny when you mentioned just how coming in freshman year, putting together the production. When my freshman year at Howard University, my class actually, in the form of a protest, took over the administration building at Howard, and had like demands, and people were in the literally sleeping in the administration building for days and days and days. So I just, can echo that same, you can see just like between different generations, this is what we do. We're trailblazers, and we're not afraid to use our voices, and find it, imperative that we utilize our voices to articulate what we need, and just in general articulating what we believe will best progress our society and progress Black people. So I kind of just saw a lot of parallels there between my experience and your experience. So it's great to just see what HBCUs continue to do.
Yes, I also can agree. Similar to Miss Angela Robinson, very, very young, it kind of just hit me that not just being able to be involved in something like this, but to actually know the difference between right and wrong, and knowing that in order to really understand it, you have to be a part of it. So I can't forget, and I give privilege to my mother, honor to my mother, because I remember at the age of 11, she told me to write an essay about the presidential election when President Barack Obama had won. And I wrote the essay, and I didn't want to write it, but I wrote it anyway. And it gave me the privilege to go to the inauguration. And I got my first chance to visit DC. I got my first chance to be around all of these impactful individuals. And at that moment, I realized I can truly make a difference. So that small plant, that small, faith as small as a mustard seed, it was planted inside of me. And at that very moment, I realized, oh, I have to be involved. So when it came time for me to attend where I was going to school and let everyone know what was happening, I said, I could go anywhere I wanted to, but I think Texas Southern is calling me. So I went there and finished school in 3 years, proud. But that last year was amazing to be able to have a candidate like Joe Biden visit an HBCU, just show you the grasp and the reach that HBCUs have, where he felt that it was not just a priority, but it was a must that he visit an HBCU. And that right there makes all the meaning to me, which shows that I have to be involved. So being involved in this, being a young Black female, it's imperative that I'm involved in change, because that's what it is. A small millimeter of change is still change.
And that is so powerful, because the next question that I was going to ask is, how did you use your current or former position as a campus queen to advocate for social change? So that was a powerful segue.
I guess I'll go ahead and answer that question first. During my time, all of you all can relate, becoming the primary female representative for not just your university, but your HBCU is a heavy mantle job, right? And but I started to understand that it wasn't just about me. So I asked questions and I wanted to understand exactly how people were feeling and what they were doing in order to be involved in politics and be involved in their vote and having their right to vote, and what they're doing to ensure that everyone else who has the right is actually utilizing it. And before I knew it, that push that I had within myself was able to connect with my fellow Tigers. So I was shocked when the calls were made after we had the presidential debate, the Democratic debate on the campus of Texas Southern. And at that point in time, I used my platform to be a primary example of what an HBCU scholar looks like, what they sound like, the questions they ask, because I didn't refrain because I was in the presence of such great people, such dynamic speakers. I dug in just as hard. I made sure that those questions I heard in the CAF on Chicken Wing Wednesday, on Fried Chicken Friday, I took those questions and I took them into those same rooms that I was privileged enough to have. And I think that is what truly, and just saying that even to myself, I realized that me asking those questions in those rooms when it was security and the cameras and the people and the little corner talks, I think that's what made the difference, and why our candidate, Joe Biden, decided to come back and say, well, let me hear it. I want to hear from them. Not just you're doing good, but let me hear from them too, because I truly want to hear them. And using that platform was able to, I think, connect HBCU students and presidential candidates. And that's what you want.
Queens.
Well, it's been many years for me, so I don't remember all the things that we did, but what I remember most was that I was an advocate for being sure that everyone felt included. And I know that college sometimes can feel like a very lonely place when you don't have friends and you don't have people who are like-minded. And so I was always sort of the social planner. Let's invite everybody to this. Let's have a major, dorm sleepover, and we all sleep in the halls, and let's be sure that we have a picnic on the yard. And so I was pretty much, that was my advocacy, sort of making sure that everybody felt loved and included and welcome to the Rattler family. When I left, my work became different, but that's sort of what I started with and what I did when I was at FAMU.
I think the main thing for me in terms of using my current position, I really want to kind of instill hope in a lot of people my age. And I've talked about this before. I think a lot of people, specifically my age, have really lost hope in our government officials and in our government system, and just kind of feel like it's all bad. What's the point? And just kind of giving up on it. But I think that I've really been trying to use my platform and kind of generate these conversations about, it's the people who are in the system that make it malicious. And if we can, if we critique the things that we love, and we try to make the things that we love better. So instead of giving up on it, I really want to inspire people to put their best foot forward in terms of reforming what types of things they want to see produced from the systems that we have in place. So it's really just been a lot of, listening, really, because I can articulate why I think it's important to vote and why I think it's important to partake in these elections. But some people have genuine concerns. And I think given our leadership that's being demonstrated right now, it's reasonable that some people feel like, I don't know what's going on. So I think listening to people and just offering a different perspective in terms of why this election is so important, that's really what I've kind of been focusing on just with my reign.
And thank you, Taylor, for highlighting that, the importance of this election. And I'll, just ask the panelists, what concerns you the most about this election season? And how are you personally fighting to combat those issues? So Taylor, I'll pitch it to you first, because you touched on it with your, with your remarks. So I'll pitch that question to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally my biggest concern is that people, I know people personally, and just looking on social media and seeing what the types of conversations that people are having, a lot of people have given up and just think that there's no hope and you can't reform a broken system. But I think that, you know, we can critique the system for what it is now, but we also have to understand that there's a possibility to change it and reform it. We are operating, I think, on a lot of just principles and amendments that are years and years and years old. They're outdated. So we have to make sure we're voting people in who are, you know, changing with the times. They don't want to necessarily say progressive, but people that are, you know, keeping up with the times and are advocating for what is best for us right now, and people who are taking the time to go out to communities and ask people directly, because there are people who are out here who are doing that and who are passionate about uplifting people our age and uplifting our communities and things like that. We just have to do our work and be diligent in terms of researching who's going to be on the ballot and making sure that we're voting. So literally that's my biggest issue, is just that people have given up. So I just really hope that this particular election will really wake people up in terms of, this is, you know, what happens when you don't play an active role in this process. You see people within this system that do not reflect your values or do not seem to care about what's important to you. You have to be an active part in electing these officials so that you feel like you can identify with who is leading you.
I agree. and another thing, the thing that sort of has concerned me has been truth and facts. And so I have sort of been my own social media fact checker and truth teller, and I'll just, you know, that's sort of what I do. And when I'm asked to speak somewhere, I try to share what the fact is and what the truth is, because everyone is depending on us to vote based on our emotion. I like this person, I don't like that person, or this person made me angry. And no, I think that if we vote based on truth and facts, then we will make a real good decision about the person that we vote for, and understanding that after voting, change doesn't stop there, change begins there. And so when you get somebody who is willing to change and to listen, then that's really all that we're interested in doing. And that's what Joe Biden has proven that he's willing to do. If you have someone who's not willing to change or to listen, then change does stop after the election. But change can actually begin after the election. And so that's sort of been my message. We're not interested in having a cult leader that we just bow down to and whatever you say goes, sir. That's not what we're interested in. What we're interested in is having someone that will collaborate, that will visit an HBCU. It's one thing to say you gave a lot of money to an HBCU, but if you can't name one, then you're not really, that's not where your heart is. So you're not going to really do a whole lot of good there. So visiting one is a very good step, and listening to the students. So that's sort of been my my soapbox this whole time. So
I think they answered that perfectly. I won't say much, but definitely truth and all of these things that they've mentioned, and also safety. Truly safety. We're still in the light of a pandemic, and an honest representation of how you should be handling something like this. I've seen it in Joe Biden. I've seen it in the people around him and his staff and those people who support him. They're truly taking precaution. And that just shows me that he is keen on making sure that those rules, those procedures put out, not by just someone who's in charge, but those people who are subject matter experts over something like this, he's listening, which means that he has an open ear, not just to our issues, but to health issues, to many other things that are concerning not just me, but everyone else involved.
And that's so important. And Angela, I want to pitch this question to you first. Why do you feel like voting in this particular election is so important? I mean, I feel like we've already touched on that, right? But let's just take a moment, you know, with this being a sister to sister and the importance as a Black woman, right? Like why is my vote so important in this particular election as a Black woman?
Well, I have to say that I think that our votes are important in every election. And in every election, we say, why is our vote so important? And we have reasons in that season of life of why our vote is important. But I don't think I've ever seen it this important. And it's important for the reasons my sisters have said, you know, safety, the unwillingness to listen. Those things are important, but most important for a Black woman is if the person is unwilling to accept that there is systemic racism in our country, then we can't fix it. We really can't move forward unless there is an acceptance, unless there is admitting. It's not criticizing an individual. It's not beating up anyone. It's just saying, this is what's happening in our country. It's like saying there's too much smoking in the country, or there's too much, but if you don't admit to it, then you can't change the rules and say you can't smoke inside a building. You then change the rules, so you have to smoke outside because you have said that smoking, secondhand smoke, causes cancer. So if you're not willing to admit that systemic racism does exist in our country, then there's no hope for eradicating it. There's no hope for fixing it. And so I think that I don't necessarily want my conversation ever around politics or around voting to be so much about the opposing viewpoint that we don't get what we're standing for. So I want to say that we're standing for Biden-Harris because they are willing to admit what the problems are so that we can get on the road about fixing it. If we spend all of our energy arguing about whether or not it really exists, then we never heal. We never get on the road to unification. We never get on the road to respecting each other's cultures. We stay right where we are. And where we are is not acceptable. And so that's why, for me, it's important, because it hits me at the core of who I am. And if I'm not going to be respected, and my journey and my culture is not going to be respected and taken from me where I am, it's okay for you to look inside my life as a Black woman and say, that doesn't exist, but you don't know. So you have to be willing to listen to me about what my journey is. And we're not a monolith, so all of our journeys are different. But I would imagine most Black people will say that systemic racism exists. So I pray that we can get to a point where we can get that out of the way, so then we can get on about the business of healing.
Absolutely. And I think just to, in addition to that, I would say for me, what's super important in terms of voting in this election is that I feel, and I know a lot of other people share the same sentiment, that the leadership that we have observed the past few years lacks integrity. It lacks any moral standing, and it just lacks everything. It lacks everything. And I think it can be a completely impartial assessment of leadership and stepping up to the plate as the commander in chief. So it's important that we don't allow this to kind of snowball into something even bigger. We have to nip it in the bud and let people know that this is not acceptable. We want someone who is going to give us facts and is going to act in the best interest of the American people. And if there are people who feel like that's not being done, then we have to nip it in the bud now before we set a dangerous precedent for people who fall under his leadership, or whoever's leadership. But so I think that's what's most important for me, is that there's a lot at stake and it can really go two different directions. And I really do foresee this being a moment in history where people are reading back in textbooks as kind of a pivotal moment in American history. And I just want to make sure that we're all on the right side of history and on the more ethically just side of history when we look back in a few years.
I couldn't say anymore. I couldn't say anymore. I feel like, you know, you never overtalk, and you all hit it right on the head. It's truly, everything you said was truth, and that's the reality. And one thing is representation for me, and realizing that the representation is there for us now means everything in the world. I mean, us as African-American women, we do a lot. I know you all are probably wondering what I'm doing. I'm here in a drive-through birthday, and then afterwards I'm gonna go home and study, and then I'm gonna get up and go on a flight tomorrow. It's a lot that African-American women have to do, that a lot of everyone has to do. And the fact that someone who was running for the president of the United States decided to incorporate and have an African-American woman as his running mate, I mean, that's a lot right there. That you want to consider African-American woman as a pivotal individual to be a part of your staff, to make those decisions so she can have some type of insight that I have, because she can relate back to me. Just like Ms. Angela Robinson said, you might not know my entire life and you might not go inside of it, but someone who is similar to me can probably give you a note or two on how I react or how I act or what I would think. And that is what's important. So I see myself in this campaign, and that's what's important.
Thank you so much for that. And I just want to ask you all, how do you feel political activism is different as a Black woman attending an HBCU?
I think the primary reason why it's different voting as a Black woman attending an HBCU, or just political activism in general, when you attend an HBCU, these are institutions that were founded on the principles of progressing the Black community and making spaces to advance the Black community when no one else would. So at no other institution are you going to find a community that is so adamantly for progressing our people. And so I think that does put you in a completely different mindset. And not completely different, like one, you know, education is better than the other, but it does kind of narrow your focus in terms of what's important. We have to be advocates for our own community. And I think that's something I really learned just being at an HBCU. If we don't, then who else, you know, who will? So with that, it's a huge responsibility. And I think it does motivate you to become more politically active because you see firsthand what it looks like when we do come together and care about each other and advocate for our brothers and sisters. So I think just as someone attending an HBCU, and then you also have that layer of being a Black woman attending an HBCU, the plight has always been, it's always been significantly more difficult, but just Black women have demonstrated all the way throughout history. They are always on the forefront of any civil rights movement you can think of. Black women have always been there on the front lines, advocating to progress society. So with that, kind of having that duality of being a Black woman and a Black woman at an HBCU, it puts this tremendous amount of, you have so much history and so much legacy to live up to. So it really does center your focus and motivate you to do what's right for your people.
Thank you for that. Angela?
That was amazing. Yes. I just say yes, Taylor. Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree totally.
Yeah.
So just really quickly, I just want you all to share, you know, words of encouragement and anything that you all would like to leave the attendees here with today. We've covered a lot and we understand the importance of royalty. And I know there's a quote that says, heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? Like when you are a campus queen, you are not only representing your university, but you continue that legacy. So can you all just highlight anything that you believe should stick with the attendees of this panel, and any other closing remarks and words that you would like to leave. And Miss Angela, I'm going to begin with you.
Well, first of all, I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful to be here with these ladies because, you know, your generation to me is my favorite. It's my absolute favorite. I tease my nieces and nephews all the time. I'm like, I'm one of you. I'm one of you. And the reason why is because you really have no limits. It's like, this is what I want to do. Oh, they only do that in Russia. Well, I'm going to Russia. You know, so yeah, you are limitless. And I wouldn't say you're fearless because that's probably not true. We do a lot of things through our fear. That's how we overcome. But what I would say is that follow the lead of these ladies, and I hope that I can too. I grew up in a time where, you know, we still had to ask for permission to do things. We still dressed up to go downtown or to the polls because we wanted to look presentable so that we were accepted. And we don't have to do that anymore. We can come as we are because we are just as deserving to be there as anybody else. We pay taxes just like anybody else. We are educated, and more than just an education, we have received an HBCU education, which means that we're educated with consciousness. And that's something that you can't really get everywhere. From the day you arrive at an HBCU to the day you leave, you know that you have to serve in some kind of way. And so service is on the ballot. Empathy is on the ballot. Truthfulness is on the ballot. Being able to see us, Black women and Black men, in all of our humanness is on the ballot. Being able to have someone that's willing to not say, oh, that's a shame, but do something about police brutality and Black men being targeted, it's on the ballot. All of those things are on the ballot. And while I am concerned about the tax plan, and I know all about both tax plans, and I could break it down, but my humanness is even more important than that. And so those things are what's on the ballot to me. Those things concern me. And I think that you don't have to be an artist, but you do have to be creative, and we're all creative. God created us, so he made us in his image, so we are all able to create. And I think that right now things are so deep that we're going to have to create our way out. We can't just pray about it, talk about it, go to the polls to vote ourselves. We're going to have to create our way out. And that means think of ways that we can get our point across to our friends. Think of ways that we can get our elderly to vote. Think of ways that we could let everyone know that how important this is. It can't just be the way it used to be. We're going to have to be creative. And so I encourage you guys, don't have an argument, be creative. Don't fight, don't block nobody, be creative. It is possible to get your point across through creativity. We're all going to have to get creative to get our point across so that we can get Biden, Harris elected so that change can begin.
Awesome. And I won't talk any much more after that because of the fact that everything you said was truthful. And also another thing I saw was strength is on the ballot. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, but I think we've all heard before, keep your head level with the floor. Keep your head level with the floor. You can never allow yourself to shrink back or feel shameful, like you said, or feel diminished or defamed by these representatives that you're electing. So this is your moment to hold your head up, to truly take your right to vote and use it. Today, me and my mother, we had a party at the polls. We got in our finest, we dressed up, put a little bit of powder on our nose and said, you know what? Not only are we going to vote, but we're going to make sure that everybody we come in contact with knows exactly what we did today. because we enjoyed ourselves and we chose the right candidate that we feel not only represents us, but represents other individuals that we also want to motivate, that we also want to empower. And that's how you should feel when you go into those polls.
I love that. I love that. I think I don't really have much else to say. They've really summed up all of my sentiments, but I would just harp on the fact that this is a really pivotal moment in just our history. And in a few years from now, when children are learning about this moment in American history, you want to make sure that you're on the right side and you represented a side that you can be proud of, and you would be able to justify years from now why you voted for who you voted for. And even if I think, it's reasonable to think that neither candidates are perfect, but you have to think about holistically, who can you walk away feeling proud that you have given a platform and given the power to completely change the course of our society. So it's a huge, huge responsibility that we have on our shoulders this election season, but I know that we will make the right choice if we just get out there and show up and show out and vote. So please, even if you've given up, this is the time to pick yourself back up and just give it one last shot so we can see the power of our vote.
Thank you for that, Taylor. And look, I just have to do it before we get to the end of the program. I just have to do a nice little queen wave. Shout out to all my queens out there. Okay. I had to do it, y'all. I had to do it. Thank you all so much for this dynamic, and powerful conversation. I am virtually applauding each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being a part of the National HBCU Homecoming Week. As each and every one of you mentioned, we have to make the Biden-Harris ticket become the Biden-Harris administration. Please, for all those that are watching, go to iwillvote.com to make sure that you get the information that you need so your voice can be heard in this election. Please also text SISTER to 30330 and also text HBCU to 30330. We thank you so much for joining us this evening, and it's a blessing. Remember, your voice matters, and thank you so much for tuning in to On the Yard, Sister to Sister. Have a good evening.